site that started out fine under the Johnson administration, but guess what? I end up leaving office. So, all of that said, don't I have to be a popular guy in New Mexico? I mean, really. And I have a good understanding of popularity, I guess, being governor, and it goes like so. I'm riding my this is when I was governor. I'm riding my motorcycle through the Jemez, and I got on all the body armor, right? I got on the helmet. I stop at a burger bar. I order a burger. You know, I'm looking pretty tough, I think. And the waitress, she goes, "Man, I'll bet a lot of people tell you look like Gary Johnson." Yeah, they do. And she goes, "That has got to piss you off." So, I feel like I understand what it is to be a politician, all right? I think I would be the next president of the United States if people would have just heard what I had to say. And I base this on the website isidewith.com. Did any of you see the website isidewith.com during the last election? 3.5 million people got online, isidewith.com, 3.5 million people got online. They took a 36 questionnaire, answered 36 questions, and then got paired up with the presidential candidate most in line with their views. Based on 3.5 million people getting online, I was the next president of the United States based on that poll, which I think was very, very scientific. So what are the issues? What are the issues that the majority of Americans think and feel? Or what is it that I think and feel? Well, I think that number one, we need to balance the federal budget. I think that unless we balance the federal budget, I think we're going to find ourselves in a monetary collapse where we're not going to have goods and services to deliver to anyone or anybody. The other thing is I think we need to reform taxes in this country in a really big way. So what I propose, eliminate the income tax, eliminate corporate tax, abolish the IRS. And I'm not doing this in a vacuum, all right? I had 20 free market economists, renowned economists that were, helping me out in this whole thing. And what they all said is, this is what needs to be done to reform taxes in this country. Is what we need to do is abolish the IRS, eliminate income tax, eliminate corporate tax, and then replace all that with one federal consumption tax. Now, I think a starting point for how you accomplish that is, let's just take the template of the fair tax and see if we can make that happen. So under a scenario where there's no corporate tax, how would there not be tens of millions of jobs created in this country as opposed to anywhere else in the world because of a zero corporate tax rate? And I think it would stimulate the economy. Imagine not having to deal with the IRS. Imagine getting your entire payroll check. And then lastly, talking about the Federal Reserve. What a rigged game that is. And I would sign legislation abolishing the Federal Reserve if that were presented to me, but it's not going to be presented to me. It's not going to happen. So let's return the Federal Reserve to its original mandate of dealing with inflation as opposed to its dual mandate of inflation and full employment. I think they work against one another. And if you're going to balance the federal budget, that means dealing with major reform of Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. You've got to do that. I think for Medicaid and Medicare, you devolve these services to the states, you give a fixed amount of money to the states that balances the federal budget, and you let the states draw new lines of eligibility. I happen to be in the camp that believes that there are those that are truly in need, that without government, they're not going to be able to survive. I just think we've gone way over the line when it comes to drawing that line, and based on my time as governor of New Mexico, I believe in my heart of hearts that I could have overseen the drawing of new lines of eligibility that would have helped those truly in need and would have done it for a lot less money. And then Social Security. Talking about the fair tax, talking about a national consumption tax. The proceeds for Social Security would come out of this national consumption tax. It would not be withheld from your payroll check. So a couple things when it comes to Social Security. You know, raising the retirement age, these are things that need to be done. You could have a very fair means testing that went along with it, and then you should have opt-in, opt-out provisions that would allow you to invest that money. Stop with our military interventions. We have hundreds of millions of enemies to this country that would not, arguably, would not exist but for our military interventions. These drone strikes, they don't just hit the target, they kill thousands of innocent civilians. And imagine if anybody in this room were killed as a result of a drone strike, I dare say that everybody else in the room would vow vengeance against that perpetrating country up to and including giving your own life to seek that vengeance. And that's exactly what we've got going on today. And then when it comes to the NSA, stop spying on us. Repeal the Patriot Act. Due process. Where's the due process? A FISA court that looks, a FISA court that hears a request to monitor 110 Verizon phone call users all the time and grants that authority to do that? That is not a due process. Uphold the Second Amendment to the Constitution, the right to bear arms. And, gee, while we're at it, how about upholding the Constitution, period? 90% of the drug problem is prohibition-related, not use-related. And that is not to discount the problems with use and abuse, but that should be the focus. The fact that we arrest 1.8 million people a year in this country, half of those arrests, I mean, this is today, we arrest 1.8 million people a year in this country on drug-related crime. We arrest, of that, 900,000 of those are marijuana arrests. 3/4 of all those arrests are for possession only. We have tens of millions of Americans who are now convicted felons that but for our drug laws would otherwise be tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. So let's legalize marijuana now. And it's happening. Colorado, Washington. Washington State, this is a tipping point. It's here and it's going to happen. And Colorado, many years ago, citizens of Denver voted to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. And having smoked marijuana and having drank alcohol, of which I no longer do either, but having done that, I can tell you that marijuana is much, much safer than alcohol, and it has always been my contention that legalizing marijuana will actually lead to less substance abuse because of the safer alternative that it is. Education. When I was governor of New Mexico, no one was more outspoken regarding school choice than I was. Let's bring competition to public education. So what we need to understand is there's a Khan Academy out there right now. Many of you are familiar with the Khan Academy. You can get a free education online, kindergarten through a doctoral degree in any subject whatsoever, and it's free.